I'm Emily Aerosmith. I'm the Director of Research and Programs at the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. We're a national nonprofit organization. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And we, for the past 25 years, have brought the apprenticeship community together to share best practices, to learn from one another, and to network, because we believe that we're stronger together. When we're talking and sharing the best practices, we're stronger together. In keeping with Indigenous protocol and building those respectful relationships, which are so core to the work that we've been doing over the past 25 years, and to wanting to build relationships of respect between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, it is customary to acknowledge the traditional territory or ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples. We are meeting virtually, so I would like to acknowledge that Indigenous peoples are the traditional stewards of the lands and waters where each of us attends the meeting this afternoon. And please feel free in the chat to say where you're attending from. CAF recognizes the Indigenous landscape of Canada is broad, and it encompasses many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Further, we respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. And we would like to invite you today to think about what intentions do you have to disrupt and dismantle colonialism beyond this territorial acknowledgement. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. To ensure an enjoyable experience for everybody, we're just asking you to mute yourself because the background noise is very distracting for the speaker. So we would like everyone to reduce the background noise and make sure that you're muted and that your video is off. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please enter them through the chat function. And if we are unable to answer during the webinar, we will follow up with you after and try and get you an answer. So this year, it's been really exciting at CAF. We've been on a learning journey, and we've partnered with the Canadian Council for Rehabilitation and Work, so we could learn from them about how we can better hire, train, and attract and retain apprentices with disabilities. What can we do to better support them? And so it's been wonderful. For the past year, we've been learning from the Canadian Council for Rehabilitation and Work about the programs and supports and things we can do. And so we've been having a series of webinars over the past year. And this one today, we're going to continue with the learning. We're going to learn a bit more about the Disability Toolkit, kind of expand our knowledge and thinking about how we can support apprentices with disabilities. So now I'm going to pass it over to Carrie, and she's going to walk us through some of the thinking around the CCRW Disability Confidence Toolkit. So Carrie, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. And congratulations on 25 years. It's always exciting to hear about. And thank you for, saying that you're partnering with us to learn more. But I truly feel that we're learning a lot from you too, with all your research and all your great connections. And truthfully, I feel like I learn from apprentices and employers and unions and community organizations every day. And it's really great to be part of that journey. I'm so happy that everybody's here today to learn a little bit more about how we can be better, improving our accessibility, disability confidence within the trade. So I will share my screen and bring you to my presentation, Disability Confidence in the Trades, Building Inclusive Workplaces. I as well thought I would do a land acknowledgement, respectfully acknowledging the land on where I am coming from today as the ancestral and unceded territory of the Beothuk. The lands here have traditionally served as a gathering place for the Mi'kmaq. The broader region of Newfoundland and Labrador continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples. I'm grateful to live and raise my family on this land. So Emily gave a little sneak peek about CCRW, or the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work. We're a not-for-profit organization, and we have been from coast to coast in Canada for over 40 years. And we exist to promote and support meaningful and equitable employment of persons with disabilities. I already introduced myself a little bit. My name is Carrie Deer. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an accessibility consultant. And for the past 2.5 years, I've worked primarily with apprentices, with community organizations, unions, employers, to really try to get to the bottom of some of the barriers that we have been experiencing within our red seal trades world. And what we do at CCRW is we take that information with our consultant information and through a research team, and we develop innovative solutions with individualized support, which is great because no two people are ever treated alike, and nor should they be. And we advocate for inclusive practices, which is exactly part of what we're doing here today. So this is the landing page of our Disability Confidence Toolkit. So if anybody has a phone nearby and you scan that QR code, it will bring you to our Disability Confidence Toolkit on our website. This is a free resource. If this is the first time you're seeing it, welcome. If this is not the first time you're seeing it, I still feel like you will learn a plethora of information today. I feel like I've been using this for just about a year, and every time I go in here, I find something new. It's robust, it's diverse, and there's lots of information. My challenge to people is always to go in and find just one or two things that you can really feel like you or your workplace or your educational facility could benefit from. But if you want to go in and look at the actual toolkit, you can follow along with me through that, or you can look it up afterwards. So today in the toolkit, well, today's topics, I guess I should say, is the importance of DE&I, so diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and also accessibility. I'm going to talk a little bit about an intersectional lens because I think that is very important as well. And then the next 4 pieces are actually pieces out of the Disability Confidence Toolkit. So I'll be talking about inclusive onboarding, cultivating workplace culture, communication, and a little bit about accommodations. So DE&I really feel is important more now than ever, especially as we see things on the news changing vastly south of the border and things maybe not being such a priority anymore. I think it's really important to know that our commitment, Canada's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is here, and it's here to stay, and it's here to hopefully make more strides in the future. We have made significant strides, but I feel that there are still some challenges that remain in a lot of different areas. And I think that ensuring an inclusive workforce is key to economic growth and to innovation. So in order to see our labor market be amazing and be robust and be sustainable, we really need to look at our untapped talent and look at the people that we have within our work system now that maybe do need a little more accommodation than they've had before. Skilled labor shortages highlight the need for a diverse and inclusive workforce. And I really want to say that DEI has gotten a bit of a bad rap about maybe, lowering standards and about just being compliant, but I really just want people to know that it's more than that. It's about removing barriers. It's about trying to make things better for everybody. And truly, that helps to improve retention, which is great, right? We don't want to get an apprentice into the trades for 2 years and then see them leave again. So we want to have that retention, we want to have that engagement, and of course, the productivity is very important as well. And as we move forward, we want to make sure that these DE&I initiatives are here, no matter what the pushback may be in other parts of the world. And as Canadians, I feel like we're all about fairness and respect and doing the right thing. And I believe that equity in the workforce allows that everybody has the chance to contribute and to thrive. So here is a little bit more about an intersectional lens, and I'm sure if any of you have been around any of my talks in the past couple of years, I tend to always touch on this because I think it's so important. So CCRW, of course, we represent people with disabilities, but we also represent people of race, people of sexual orientation, gender identity, nationality. Like, we always look at the person as a whole. And that's why I always say that no two people are the same, right? So when we look at the intersectionality, we really want to acknowledge that everybody's going to be different. Everybody is going to have some sort of experience in their past, maybe biases or discrimination, oppression, and just really considering everything and anything that can marginalize individuals, and how can we work to make that better. So this just make sure you're on mute if you can. Here I just go a little bit more into the role of intersectionality. So talking about workers that face multiple barriers. And I have an example, I believe it's coming up next, of, an individual with disability and race, gender, LGBTQ plus status, all into one, and how that can really affect individuals. And I wrote in a little bit about psychological safety here, and I think it's really important because a lot of times our disabilities aren't visible, so people don't see them. And if you don't feel safe to be able to disclose that, then how is it possible to feel comfortable and feel that you're your own self? And I just want to make sure that people understand that inclusive workplaces don't just mean removal of physical barriers. So for so long, you hear people, oh, I need to get a ramp to the front, and oh, I need to get a grab bar in the bathroom. And accessibility is so much more than that. It's so much more than, just the high level things that society has, for some time thought that would make things accessible. But it's thinking about, how can everybody hear? How can everybody see? How can we make everyone feel included? Remove those social barriers. So thinking of accessibility and intersectionality a little bit broader. And also I had to mention mental health. It's prevalent, it's prominent, it's across all demographic groups. And it's across our country, across our world. So, really trying to have a better understanding of what people are bringing to work with them or to school with them every day. So here's a little bit of trivia, but it doesn't work so well when I can't see everybody. So I just want to talk a little bit about the diversity and disability. And so there's a blank here. So blank number of Canadians have some sort of disability, and the number is... Did anyone say 27%? Because if you did, you'd have that right. Now that's for Canada. That's for working age individuals from 18 to 64. And then most disabilities, again, I have a blank here. I don't know if anyone's saying what they think the number would be, but the number of invisible disabilities is 80%. So think of that. Think of 27% of Canadians self-identifying as having a disability, and I'm sure there's many more that don't disclose, and 80% of those not being a visible disability, right? So that's a lot. And so when I say things like not visible, so usually that's something that's not physical. It could be mental health related. It could be low back pain. It could be a chronic illness. It could be neurodiversity. There's so many different things. And I guess I should go back to that when I talk about the diversity and disability. It's a broad brush. It's a really broad brush. And just making sure that we're understanding that just because we don't see that disability, and I actually don't even like using the word disability, but because we don't see that issue or that barrier or what that person's living with, doesn't mean it's not there. And the last point here is that fostering inclusion and accessibility in the labor market really does remain an urgent priority. I didn't put my stats in here of, the labor gap within Canada, and CAF has some great research there. We're really needing workers from coast to coast. And I really think that fostering inclusion and accessibility is a big piece in that. And that is why this matters now. We are in urgent need of workers, and really starting with that disability inclusion can help. And when I talk about disability inclusion, I really think of it as being the foundation of a good setup to make sure that everybody feels included, right? We need to make sure we have workforce sustainability. We need to make sure we have equity. And through all this, we get innovation, we get productivity, we get all the wonderful things that our minds and our individual skills can bring together. So again, I don't want people to think of it as compliance. I want people to think of it more as humanism. And many tradespeople are already working with disabilities, but they're not always supported. And I've had many conversations over the past couple of years where individuals say, "Oh no, yeah, we don't have people with disabilities or barriers on our job sites. Yeah, no, we just don't have those." Well, if 27% of the Canadian population has a disability, not all of our job sites or our schools are exempt from that. So, just putting out through workplace culture and different openings to onboarding, which we'll get into in a moment, I think can really kind of set more of a stage for people saying how they truly do feel. So here's a story of a carpentry apprentice. And this carpentry apprentice is, so I started with intersectionality. So she's a female, she's African Canadian, she's of the LGBTQ plus community, she's neurodiverse. So when she came to me, she said, I love being a carpenter. I love doing my apprenticeship. She said, but I have dyscalculia, I have dysgraphia. And when I try to read a tape measure, she's like, the lines just get confused to me. I don't read them properly. And then I get anxious. I'm making mistakes. My employer's not happy with me. I really don't know what to do here. So my first conversation with her was about disclosure. And she said to me, she's like, I am a Black woman who's a lesbian, and I cannot hide any of those things. She said, the only thing that I can hide is my neurodiversity. She said, and I've masked that for years, and I don't want it to be another strike against me. So to me, that's sad already that we're still having those conversations in 2025, although that was 2024. But that's truly how she felt. And that's some of the bias that we talked about, or I mentioned earlier. Okay, all that aside, let's help you then. How do we get you to that next level to be able to take away this barrier of the issue with the tape measure? So we were able to get her a tape measure. I said, I'll send it to you. You try it. And she said, okay, I will. And 2 weeks later, she called me and she was crying and I did not feel good about these tears. And she said, I have to tell you that you've changed my life. She's like, this tape measure has boosted my confidence. My employer has been telling me how good I've been doing. She's like, my anxiety feels like it's been lifted, completely disappeared. And she said she felt safe bringing her true self to work. Now, I might say that maybe she's still not bringing her true self to work in 100% of the capacity. However, she's bringing her truer self to work and she's being able to feel comfortable in that position. And going forward with her carpentry trade, which is absolutely beautiful. And I guess another piece I should have mentioned, that tape measure only cost $35. So it also wasn't an expensive piece of equipment, but definitely something that helped her in removing her barrier. So one piece I'm going to start talking about through the Disability Confidence Toolkit is onboarding. So onboarding, right? So after you've hired somebody, you're going to bring them in, you're going to tell them a little bit about the workplace, you're going to tell them about, different things that you do. One of the best things we can actually do is provide disability training for everybody. Because if everybody has that training, at least hopefully they can understand it more. So, we really feel like it's great when it comes from leadership, but also as the coworkers, the people that you work with that also need to feel confident in that space. Also making sure that documentation and onboarding tools are fully accessible. And you can do that by working with disability organizations or people who have lived experience. You can use our Disability Confidence Toolkit. There's lots of different ways that you can make sure that things are fully accessible. And ensuring that if the individual did have any previous accommodations implemented, that they are available through onboarding and that follow-up is planned for afterwards. And through the Disability Confidence Toolkit, we actually have a checklist, which is downloadable. You can go use it today if you like. Now today I just put up the before the employee starts, just as a visual. So we have 3 different parts of this fillable checklist tool, and we do it before the employee starts, sorry. We also have another piece for on the first day and another one for after the orientation and onboarding. And of course, you don't necessarily have to go through every single thing, and that it's going to change for individuals that come into your job site. However, it's a really good thing to look over. It's a really good thing to get accustomed to, and it's something that, like I said, you can download it and use it right away. Another piece that I thought it was really important to discuss, and I feel like people ask me about it a lot more now, that's workplace culture. So inviting people with lived experience to participate is really important. We're hearing those stories, and that's something that we really try to do at CCRW. And actually, we've teamed up a little bit with CAF, just trying to get some more, social media on testimonials and, myth busting. And what are some of the facts? What are some things that people with disabilities or anybody can do really well that we might not give them credit for, or we might not give each other credit for. We really want to be able to ignite dialogue and action that gets rid of all those biases, that really just brings people as people to the workplace. We want to try to embed accessibility into workplace culture. So like I said, not just a ramp and a grab bar, but really thinking about that whole picture. It also really helps to have inclusive workplace policies already in place. By having that first step from leadership really helps the trickle-down effect, that everybody realizes that, yeah, that's really important. And that's going to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion within the workplace. And this is a picture right from the Disability Confidence Toolkit. And I want everybody to take a moment. I will read it out to you, but if you can read it as well. It says, it takes a powerful movement to inspire workers to rewire their ways of thinking and change their behavior. Now, just a minute ago, I said that it really helps when there's buy-in from leadership because there's a trickle-down effect. However, that's not always where it begins. I have an example coming up about a young gentleman who, he really started inspiring, and he came with a significant barrier. And then quickly leadership jumped on board, and that the culture just had a ripple effect through the whole organization. Communication. I can't stress communication enough in so many different ways. And if you go into the toolkit, you'll see lots of information about communication in there, but a big important part is introduction to accessible communication, making sure that you're using person first language when you're talking to people. That's disability etiquette, and as your own individual, making sure that you're self-aware. Also, I think empathetic is very important, and also being intentional. There are many diverse types of communication, and we always encourage people to try to research more about that and really have an understanding of things that are happening new in our world with our AI going as fast as it is. There's new technologies coming up all the time, and terminology is always evolving. So making sure that we're up to par with what that is. However, I want to say, do not let fear stop you. So if you're not sure how something should be talked about or how someone should be referred to, please don't let fear stop you. I think it's a very important thing to be able to try to make that effort. And it's okay if you say something wrong, because the next time you won't, right? We don't know what we don't know. And also, disability is not taboo. Making sure that we understand what it can look like, asking people, hey, do you need a hand? Do you need help? Is there anything that I can do for you? And their answer may be no, or they might say, actually, this could be helpful. And that's going to be very individualized. And here comes my story about a heavy equipment operator. And this is where I was chatting earlier about how sometimes that inclusive work culture really gets molded when a person with a disability or a challenge comes into the workforce. And so the intersectionality of this gentleman, he was deaf, nonverbal, a male with some mental health, anxiety issues, mostly just around not working. So his challenges were being deaf, nonverbal. He lacked access to VRS, so video relay services. He was isolated in rural Newfoundland, struggling to secure hours. And so he had low self-esteem, mental health issues, challenges. We can understand that. He was living at home with his mom. He's in his early 40s. So we were able to get him a phone for communication, which allowed for VRS. And we found an employer who said, you know what, let's try this. If we need to get an ASL interpreter, American Sign Language interpreter, we can do that. We'll work on some different things. So we actually hired Anova, which is our sister company, to do an advisor. We had them do an assessment in order to make sure that we were playing everything by the book, so that things were there for safety. We had hand gesture documentation for the employer, for the coworkers. We had an emergency evacuation plan. And then the one thing that I didn't know about, which was great, it's called a Hand Talk app. And all of his coworkers and the employers downloaded this app. And it's very neat. And as I mentioned, with AI and technology going way faster than a lot of things these days, when you speak into it, the bot, I will call it, will actually do the ASL interpreting, and they will do that sign. So it was so important for him to be able to be included that way. And now he's successfully employed. He's thriving in his role. His employer is embracing all of it. And he's the employer who said to me, you know, it really has changed our work culture by having him here, because people really try to help out more. And he's like, I think they realize that, hey, sometimes you take things for granted without realizing. So when we first discussed him hiring him on, the employer said, you know what, I have to tell you, most of us don't talk on the job sites anyway, because they're always way too loud. So he kind of laughed it off that way, but definitely a story of success there. I just wanted to take a moment to say, you know, I really feel like disability is part of life. When I mentioned 27% of individuals have a disability, any of us can join that at any given day, right? It can be short term, it can be long term. We've helped individuals who've had broken hands, broken feet, or broken foot, but just two people, but they each had a broken foot, being able to give them accommodations though during their education, their job site, so that they were able to get those hours or able to finish their education and not be put back an extra year in the system. So, you know, things like that are also able to help out. And inclusion is about creating workplaces, educational facilities, and testing where everyone can succeed. Of course, there may be limitations around that, but being able to find the supports to be able to help are very important. And accommodations are not just for the workplace. They're a foundation of belonging, they're productivity supports, and they truly do allow us all to be the best that we can be. So the true definition of accommodations on our website is that that workplace accommodations are modifications made at any stage of the employment journey that enable all workers to fully participate in employment. But as I mentioned, especially with trades, we really need to look outside of that. We need to look at the educational component, and we need to look at that testing component as well. And through the many apprentices that we've seen at CCRW in the last few years, a big piece of the accommodations that they need are in school and are in help with studying and really understanding how to study better, sometimes using different technologies to be able to learn better as well. So when we talk about accommodations, I've given a few examples here today, but they don't have to be large. They don't have to be expensive. Remember the $35 tape measure. They don't have to be scary, right? They don't have to be intimidating. And they also don't have to be common knowledge. So, for example, the lady who had that tape measure, nobody needed to know why she had that, or that was even a disability support or a productivity support. They just probably thought that she had a really cool digital tape measure, and that's okay too. One more example, and this is another example of working together and making sure we're collaborating with people in our communities. And across Canada, we have so many great organizations, unions, employers, educators. I feel like we should all be working more and more together. I don't know if Mary Ford from Trades NL is on this call, but she often says we got to cast the net. And I don't know if it's because I'm from Newfoundland that really resonates with me, but it's so true. And this gentleman was a great success, and it was between Trades NL and CCRW. And he was Indigenous, or he is. He also has epilepsy, and he was also battling with depression. And some of the challenges there were he had lost his license due to his epileptic seizures. He felt isolated in his community. He was unemployed. This led to facing mental health struggles, and it was a cycle. And, in true collaboration, it really worked out to be able to provide this young man with safety upskilling. We were able to get him wage subsidies, some transportation assistance. Again, we had a specialized assessment done, and we were able to get him specialized glasses because it was not the flickering light, but bright lights that would irritate him. And, I didn't put it in here, but one of the biggest things he said would irritate his or bring on his epileptic seizures were lack of sleep. And since he's been working as an electrical apprentice, he's been seizure free, and that's been for nearly 3 months. And this young man totally thinks it's because he's getting sleep. He doesn't feel stressed. I told his employer maybe he's working him too hard, because he said he comes home tired every day, but he's excited to go to work. He has that self-worth. His mental health struggles are nowhere near where they were, and he's feeling much better, and he has a happy employer. And I think that's a really important thing to say or to see. And then his employer, Darren, and he told me I could use this, but he said, we need to stop looking at the disability and focus on the person and what they can do. And I obviously believe that that's very true, right? Let's even remove the whole piece of disability. Let's just make us more confident employers. Let's make us more confident educators, more confident community groups, more confident people to be able to focus more on people and what they can do. Diversity and inclusion are celebrated Canadian values. And as I said in one of my first few slides, I really feel that now more than ever, we need to stand behind that. We really need to push forward on being that country that supports everyone. You'll see a QR code on here, and that is actually sending you to our trends report through CCRW's website as well. It's a long read, but it's a worthwhile read. And it's all about a lot about return on investment, and not just financial, but also social. And the economic and social returns of disability inclusion ensure that businesses can achieve immediate returns on investment while securing sustainable growth. And a big reason why I wanted to put that in here is because as we look at the challenges that red seal trades and skilled trades from coast to coast are experiencing now and will be experiencing over the next foreseeable future, I think it's very important to make sure that we're getting into helping everybody that are interested in becoming part of the trades to make sure that they're there safely, they're there respectfully, and that we're retaining them. Workplace disability inclusion begins with disability confidence, an active commitment from leadership. So for those of you who like call to action slides, this is just a slide for food for thought. And I really want you to ask yourselves these questions. So are we fostering workplaces or educational facilities where workers or students feel safe to ask for what they need? And I will say that, over my last few years here in this role, working with apprentices are a lot more likely in the educational uh, part of their journey to say that they might need help than they are with in the job site. And we need to be able to be better at that, right? They need to be able to feel safe in both parts because it's made up of both parts. When we talked about accommodations, I really just want to focus in on the fact that small accommodations can have a truly big impact. In some of the examples that I use there, it increased people's confidence, it increased their retention, productivity went up, but it also helped them be more of who they are. And I think that's a very important piece to acknowledge as well. Inclusion is not about compliance. It's about recognizing skill, talents, contribution, new ideas, innovation. So I ask you again, do you think there's anything that you can do internally to make your workplace, educational facility, or organization more inclusive? I put the employer's quote at the bottom here again. Darren, as he said, let's stop looking at disability. Let's focus on the person and what they can do. So I have a couple more slides here, and this one is CCRW's newest untapped talent. So again, there's another QR code. If you have your phone with you, you're going to have lots of pages to look at after this presentation. So untapped talent is a job board specifically for people that do have some sort of a disability. Now, remember, when I talk about disability, it's a very broad brush. It can be anything from neurodiverse to mental health to a physical disability to a chronic condition, you name it. It can look however that person wants. And I should also say that we don't require any sort of paperwork or a psych ed assessment. So it's built on a social model of what that person needs. And what we're trying to do is trying to be able to tap into people who need work and then disability confident employers. So employers who are looking to become disability confident, this is for you. So you can register. There's places on there to create a job posting, and we can also have our digital team get in contact with you if you have more questions on that. And then I am aware that I put the Disability Confidence Toolkit slide in here twice, just in case somebody didn't get a chance to scan it at the beginning. If you want to scan it now, go for it. This is what it kind of looks like when you get to the page on our website. And that's it. Then I was going to open the floor for questions if anybody had any questions.
Somebody's asking, Carrie, with the one example of the Indigenous person that you helped, was that connected to an ISET holder? I think that stands for Indigenous Skills and Employment Training.
No. No. So this person was the help provided through his ISET holder. Jen, I'm not sure what an ISET holder is. I know they were referred to us through Trades NL, and we were able to get them upskilling.
Okay, I think Trades NL might be on ISET holder. It's like
okay.
They receive funding to help Indigenous people with their training and employment.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments or something that you're doing at your institution that you feel is really working for apprentices?
Oh, and sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak at a term, but I see Joanne is saying about, sharing stories to help support, develop supportive culture. I totally agree. And that's a big thing that we're really trying to do, as I mentioned with CAF, trying to do some mythbusters and testimonials and little videos about, what has worked for other people and making it okay so that people feel empowered that, oh, wow, if that person can do that, I can also do it too. And trying to create more of a community there.
And if you're interested in coming to our Supporting Equity in Trades conference, which we'll be having in Toronto this year from May 24th to 26th, CAF and CCRW are going to be hosting a town hall like session where apprentices with disabilities can come and share their experiences and talk about what works for them and how we can better support them. So that session will be at the conference, and we'd love to see you there. Okay, so Nicholas Brown from the Wellington, I think it's a school board maybe, he's asking, how does one advocate for opportunities that aren't necessarily sought by participants? For example, I'll often ask a union apprenticeship partner if there's opportunities for school graduates, maybe with MID or DD and exceptionalities for meaningful work in the trade, such as tool management or site maintenance, that can maybe provide like a shorter day shift for non-apprentices, but maybe the opportunities aren't always there.
Absolutely. And great question. So that's a big piece of what we do, right? So I mentioned some harder accommodations, but a lot of times it is, working with shorter days or working with a different skill set in that area. And so that's definitely on an individualized basis, but that's a big part of what CCRW does as well. This apprenticeship piece is new, but they've been in the disability and works space for over 40 years. So definitely, if you want to look into that further, if you have specific people, we might be able to just help in that area. I also wanted to mention that with this disability toolkit, if you do look through and you're like, you know what, we could really maybe use some work on this, or maybe we could use some information on this, feel free to reach out. We're happy to work with employers, educators, whatever that may be, really trying to make it a more inclusive landscape.
Suzanne is asking, hi, Carrie, have you communicated your supports in the high schools? Or can there be any work done there? And I think there certainly could be with the youth apprenticeship programs, maybe, and letting high school students know that there can be accommodations made available if they're interested in the trades and the practical learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then I
think there's a huge
Skills Canada, and they're in every province. Different provinces have really tried to take our information and bring it to their high schools to say, like, hey, there's still there's opportunity, and really trying to say, just because it might look like this for you doesn't mean that you can't do it. Because the same thing with sharing those stories of empowerment, that's where we're really trying to go with that. So we haven't directly, but indirectly through other organizations. Yeah, and definitely a space we need to be.
Awesome. So someone's just making a comment that they were at an LDANL conference a couple of years ago, and one of the speakers used the term exceptionality instead of disability. She said it had to do with perceptions and expectations. We use the term exceptionalities now when referring to students who may need accommodations. It tends to put the situation in a more positive light rather than using disability. It doesn't come with the same negative connotation, but then someone else is saying there's nothing wrong with the word disability. It's not a bad word.
I agree with everybody. Sean, I agree. And I'll also say that, speaking of disability in the trades has been one that's come with some resistance, right? We talk about them as exceptionalities. We talk about them as barriers. Through our federal funding that we had, it was all about disability. So that was some of the wording that we had to do, but we've learned very much so that, a lot of people just don't identify there. And I do think that in some lights it does have negative connotation, but it's definitely up for debate.
Okay, someone's sharing a toolkit that came from the Center for Innovation in Campus Mental Health Re-Skilled Trade Students. That's awesome.
Oh, and, awesome. Thank you, Joanne. I'll have a look at that as well.
The toolkit, Carrie, it's available on your website forever now, right? It's not funding dependent. Yeah.
No, that's
right.
The
resources, the disability toolkit, but the grants to apprentices are ending at the end of March, right?
So our apprenticeship services are ending. That was not re-upped by the federal government. However, CCRW will still be there. Our disability confidence toolkit will be there. We'll still have apprenticeship supports, but they'll just look a little bit different. And we don't know all the information on that yet, but
Oh, Max, Sharon has a good point. One of the challenges they see, now we're talking about welders, that, okay, there's accommodations in high school and then it continues into the trade program, but then it abruptly ends suddenly when the person is off to work. How can one empower themselves if they are aware that they need accommodations once they hit the job market?
And that's a great point. And much similar to the gentleman earlier was talking about, accommodations when they get out of school. And that's the harder part because it's usually not an open conversation. It starts with onboarding. So one thing that we're trying to do right now is really give employers that disability confidence and try to get the buy-in for the employers. So they're asking right up front, is there anything that you need? So, someone that's new and fresh out of school doesn't have to come out and say, hey, I'm new here and can I get this or can I get that? So we're really trying to hit it from that side of disability confidence, but we also have a lot of different pieces in our career management program or portal, sorry, about disclosure, the importance of disclosure, how to ask for different accommodations, ideas about accommodations. So there are things out there, but there's not one little magic button, unfortunately, that people can press because I think it has to be part of that circle, right? It's the individual, but it's also that workplace.
Right, right. Stanley Oliver has just more of a comment. He says here at Trades NL, the Indigenous Skilled Trades Office, we work very closely with CCRW and OAW to advance advocate for many underrepresented people. And there's still so much work to do and much to do, but hats off to CCRW.
Thank you very much. And honestly, as I said from the beginning, hats off to all of you for being here today, because obviously, if you're here, you're interested in the conversation. And I feel like CAF has really put up a great platform in the last couple of years to really say, hey, this is important and we're standing behind this and helping to educate everyone across Canada. And I think, like I said, the more that we all work together, the more inclusive we can make it. Someone just asked for my email, so I'm just going to pop that in the chat because I had a bunch of QR codes today, but I didn't have a QR code to my email.
Oh, somebody's sharing a good practice. In post-secondary, we try and share that there are workplace accommodations when helping students transition out of school and back and into work. And communication is so important as a part of this work because often maybe the learner doesn't know. I was just talking to some newcomers in Alberta, and they just had no idea that, and some of them had learning challenges that they'd identified, and they were terrified about the multiple choice test, and they didn't understand that in Alberta, you can get an accommodation for your exam and a reader if you need it, or more time. You can be in a private room if you need it. So a lot of the times it is just constantly reaching out to the learner or the apprentice and just letting them know what is available, because lots of times people don't know. Well, that's great. Please feel free to email Carrie or I if you have any additional thoughts. Oh, somebody's asking, Carrie, do you have a one-pager that you hand out during trades registrations on day one? And maybe could we chat about it?
We can chat about it. So because of our apprentice supports changing as they're seen right now, we kind of just got to figure out what it looks like around that. But yeah, let's chat about that and shoot me an email. And I definitely want people to know. I still want them to be empowered. I still want them to know the supports are there. It's just they won't be as fluffy as they were before, let's say.
Okay. And the CCRW website, as you said, is always there. And there's a national office, if I'm correct, right? And then there's provincial offices.
That's right.
And they do help people get connected to employment, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our national office is in Toronto. And then, we have, Burnaby, BC, all the way to St. John's, Newfoundland, in most provinces. And individualized programs for anybody who needs to get gainful employment. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. And now we do have a lot more apprenticeship expertise with accommodations and that sort of thing. So really
Mhm.
trying to kind of meld all that together to be able to help the workforce.
Awesome, awesome. And we will be sending out a webinar recording later this week if anyone would like to listen to it again. But also encourage you to go to the CCRW website and check out that disability toolkit that's there and all their great resources. And look out for our vignettes and our one-pagers and our infographics through the CAF and CCRW partnership. We're going to be putting those on social media, and we'd love for you to like them or comment or share them. So thanks very much, everybody. We really appreciate you taking time from your afternoon to come and learn with us today. And we look forward to seeing you in Toronto in May at our first ever Supporting Equity in Trades Conference. So thank you very much. Thanks to Carrie for your wonderful presentation. And just thank you for teaching us so much over the past year. It's been wonderful working with you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.